Welcome to Sapna, sir.
Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Vikram Sampath at Sapna. Like my colleague had mentioned, we had a little bit of your introduction right before you came in. My colleague was just reading it out. But sir, I think pages and pages and pages of introduction, and no amount of introduction would be enough to honor your achievements, sir. It's such a pleasure and an honor to have you amongst us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Could I get a mic for sir, please? So firstly, congratulations, you've been named as India's top 50 most influential minds, and this just happened yesterday.
Thank you so much. I don't know if I'm able to influence anyone at home, but I think at least in the rest of the country, hopefully.
So I think a little birdie told me that you actually hated history while growing up. And could you believe it? Can you imagine, sir, not liking history while growing up, and your frequent trips to Mysore, which you constantly kept bugging your family for? So how did this love affair with history begin?
I think it was more than a little birdie. It was I've been talking about this everywhere. My poor school history teacher, I think she gets a lot of flack. So first of all, very good evening to everyone. And I'm deeply grateful to each of you for braving the Sunday Bangalore traffic and coming here in such large numbers. It's really, really heartening. So yes, like many of you here, I mean, just a show of hands, how many of you liked history in school while growing up? Wow, I mean, I would be in a minority here. That's amazing. I think I'm talking to the wrong audience. But the right readers now, at least.
Yes,
but honestly, I think those days, I don't know how the syllabus has changed now or not, but those days it's not changed. So at least those days it was just memorizing by rote and who succeeded whom, which war was fought in which era. It just didn't make any sense that why on earth do you need to know this? And the maximum punishment if I've got for any subject in school, it was for history, which was very religiously found kneeling down outside class. And I remember once some Akbar's map, reign of his thing on the map of India where to draw. I did it very quickly. I think the history teacher was in such a bad mood. She pulled me into the middle of the class, took two rulers and actually, hit me on my palm.
Oh my God.
And actually the ruler broke and a splinter went inside. The mark is still there, the history teacher's mark. So, so of course the next day my mother went to school and created a ruckus saying how will it change my son's life if he didn't know what was the extent of Akbar's reign. It is really sad that in a country of storytellers, we've been a nation of storytellers, and our history is rife with not only lessons. All of that is one part, but it's so fascinating. There's so many stories, so many characters, intrigues, wars, romance, drama. We make it appear so pedantic. But I think destiny had other things in mind, at least for me. Some of you, at least, a lot of young people may not even be born then, but the slightly older ones in the audience might know. There was this serial on Doordarshan called The Sword of Tipu Sultan, Sanjay Khan's. And in that, if you remember, just to show Hyder Ali and Tipu in a good light, and they were usurpers of the throne of Mysore, ruled for 600 years by the Hindu Vadiyar dynasty. To show them in a good light, you had the Maharaja of Mysore, Immadi Krishnaraj Vadiyar, shown like this, obese buffoon who's dancing with the court dancer, nartaki, main tumko naach sikhata hu, and all that. And then you had the Maharani, the most sagacious Maharani Lakshmi Ammani, in whose name we also have a college here in Bangalore. She was shown like this, one of those vamps from those Ekta Kapoor serials, always conspiring, conniving against Tipu. And I don't know what, and there was also a fire that broke out in the Premier Studios in Mysore. And Sanjay Khan's face had got burnt, and he had to, I think, reconstruct it. And Kannada newspapers had all these stories that this is Vodiyar Shrapa. It's a curse of the Vodiyar. You showed him in a bad way, and that's why you had to pay the price. So for a boy like me, who actually, I mean, my family had nothing to do with Mysore. I was born here, and Bangalore is my most favorite place. But I'm half a Tamilian, half a Maharashtrian, and I don't know what happened. There's some prarabdhas of all of us that every vacation I said I need to know the truth behind this false portrayal, and it was never with the intention that this will become a book someday or I want to become a historian. Never, not with those scales breaking on my palm. So, but then I don't know. So every vacation meant going there to Mysore, meeting members of the royal family, and the 6th standard, 7th standard boy in half pants going there and talking to Shrikanta Datta Vodiyar and his wife Pramoda Devi and others. They were very gracious with their time, old timers there, and it was all just collection to put it in a log book, a book for my own, Swanta Sukhaya, so to say. And those days I was good at sketching, so sitting in the Mysore Palace I would make portraits of all these Maharajas and so on. And this madness actually continued for 10 long years, where from that one king and queen, my interest expanded to the entire dynasty. And the Vodiyars were among the longest reigning royal houses of India, ruling for 600 years. From 1399, when Yaduraya established the kingdom, it was under the Vijayanagar Empire, broke away, and then Raja Vodiyar establishes autonomy, till 1947, with Jaichamaraj Vodiyar as the last Maharaja. And barring that 40 year when Hyder and Tipu usurped the throne, it was constantly a continuous kingdom. And the foundations of modern Karnataka today, I mean the social, economic, progress, the cosmopolitan outlook that we all are so proud of, I think a lot of that is the foundations that were laid by the later Vodiyars, particularly someone like a Nalvadi Krishnaraj Vodiyar, who's called Rajarishi by none less than Gandhi himself, and all the Diwans, Bangalore being the first city in India to be electrified, the first bulb coming here, the Hesarghatta project, which created one of the largest water supply chains, which we are still beneficiaries of. And when the KRS dam was built, it was the largest in Asia and the second largest in the world. So numerous such firsts to their credit. Now, after 10 years of collecting all this information, I realized that there was not even a single book in the modern times which chronicled this entire history. There were Mark Wilkes and Hayavadan Rao and all these people who were pre-independence era chroniclers. Every generation needs to look back at their history and redefine it, rewrite it in a fresh perspective. There again is a bane of Indian history and historiography among several other banes, which is we are very, very Delhi-centric. Everything about one small little, good-for-nothing dynasty also, which would have reigned just for 20, 30 years. We learn the chronology, the names of all those kings and so on, and dynasties. But South India, where we come from, or the Northeast, all these places don't even feature in our idea of what Bharatiya Itihas is. And so that is how there's a very nice quote of Toni Morrison, which I keep mentioning, that if there is a book that you want to read and it hasn't been written yet, then you must be the first one to write it. So that was what led me to write my first book, Splendors of Royal Mysore, The Untold Story of the Vodiyars, and that came out in long back, I think 2008. 2008, 17 years ago. And at that time, I had a regular corporate job, looking at Excel sheets, calculating profit. Like some of them who are probably doing that are sniggering here. Looking at calculating profit and loss of some American company. And I thought one day I will die doing just this. And luckily, I thought it was a one-book wonder. You write one book, then go back to your corporate career. But thankfully, once again, destiny had other plans in mind. And today, after 17 years, there have been 10 books by the grace of God, which have happened. Thank you.
10 and many, many, many more to come. We want to keep doing this with you every year, sir. So, like you rightly mentioned, history that was taught in school, I know you talk about this quite frequently, but the history that we were taught in school is nowhere close to the history that we are learning today. I think a simple fact that I read in one of your books was that Rani Naiki Devi, she was the first person who defeated Muhammad Ghori back in 1178, and she was from the Chalukya dynasty in Gujarat. And did you all know that Muhammad Ghori was defeated first? I think such small information, we are so thorough. I think if you wake me up in my sleep, I can tell you the chronology of the entire Mughal Empire and who was the ruler and when were the battles fought. But when you look at the unsung heroes, Prithviraj Chauhan, Chhatrapati Maharaj, I think Chhatrapati Maharaj Shivaji. I think so many unsung heroes that we don't talk about today. Plus, when you look at the architecture, I think we amaze at the Mughal architecture. We visit the Taj Mahal. There's so many Mughal artifacts and architecture that we amaze at. But how many of us have gone to the ruins of rich Indian Hindu architecture? I think we don't visit them as often as we do when we go to these trips. So, sir, I think, how do you feel history needs to be retold today? Like I said, I know you've said this a lot of times, but would love to hear your take on it.
How many of you saw that recent film, his story of Itihas, which was there for a very short period of time, and I think the mafia is so strong that they don't allow alternate voices even now to thrive. I think that movie in many ways caught the nub of the issue as to how our history has been taught to us. As I grew up from hating this subject, and jokes apart, it is not a subject that one can afford to hate or neglect, and it is not something you just memorize by rote and get some marks and get done with it. I've always said this, that history is a mirror in which we can identify ourselves as a civilization, as a people, and as a nation. And our colonial masters, the British, they understood this very well. If you've seen the waves of colonization that India faced, the Middle Eastern colonization was all about destruction, conversion, violent, takeover. We survived that. But the next wave which came with the European and particularly the British colonialism was something more deeper. It was capture of the mind, and that intellectual colonialism. And the wonderful irony is that we are having this conversation in their language. And we're waxing eloquent about colonialism, talking about this. We'll all struggle so hard to say all of this with this eloquence in Hindi, Kannada, Marathi, all of our own languages, which is sad. So it takes a very long time. Colonization itself, I think, comes in three dimensions. Political colonization, which is occupation; economic, political, after a protracted struggle, it's not easy, but it's not too difficult to get rid of it and get freedom. Around the 1940s, so many countries became free. Economic colonization, where raw materials here taken away at cheap rates, taken there, produced, brought back and sold at high prices to destroy industries here, the Manchester mills and so on, which destroyed the textile industry here. But there too, today we are bigger economy than our colonizer, United Kingdom. So political and economic colonization you can still somehow afford to get rid of. But the mind, the intellectual, cultural colonization, and I think it was George Orwell who had said that the surest way of defeating a people is to obliterate and deny to them their understanding of their own past. And they understood this. And that is why, if you see what you mentioned, numerous faults in the way our history has been taught. One is, of course, we are taught to be a nation of self-loathers, of losers. Just a poll among all of you, the wars that you read about in your history textbook, all of you who raised your hand saying you liked history while studying it, The Arab invasion of Sindh, the battles of Panipat, the battles of Tarain, the battle of Plassey, Buxar, Anglo-Mysore War, Anglo-Maratha War, Anglo-Sikh War, you name it. You will only hear and know and retain the wars that we lost. Now, if we are the only pre-Bronze Age era civilization which is still alive and kicking and thriving, our poor ancestors, there must have been some wars that these poor things also must have fought and won, some courage that they also showed. Why is it that we are not told that? Because they understood this. The same George Orwell quote applies, where you put that self-loathing so much into a person, you break the spine of the person by hitting at the nub of their self-respect and self-identity. So outwardly we may be progressing today, we are becoming the third largest, fourth largest, whatever economy, militarily strong. But the operating system, which is our own sense of confidence, we are all taught to look down upon our tradition, our culture, our faiths, all of this as superstition. I'm not saying everything about it is great. There are, like in all societies, there have been social evils, there have been oppressions, there have been differences, the caste, so many things that have been there in this country, which history gives you a space to also learn from mistakes of the past. But there has to be a balance where you also have a sense of genuine pride for what your ancestors did over the thousands of years of our documented history. What has been the Indian contribution in the larger production of knowledge in the world, in mathematics, in chemistry, in various yoga, Ayurveda, metallurgy, and all of this. Sadly, there too we need someone, with all due respect, he's someone I read a lot, a contemporary historian who's not an Indian will come and tell us, write a book on how great we were, and say, he's telling it, so I'm sure it must be right. So, don't we all face that everywhere? You see someone of a different skin color, naturally we have that servile attitude, which has been so deeply instilled in our minds, and I'm not telling A or B, we're all guilty of that. And a big factor of resolving that is by knowing our past, our history, and that is the only thing which can solve this problem, which unfortunately no one has been doing so.
Absolutely, sir. I think it was more of a psychological colonialism than anything. The World War II, I read it somewhere that there were 2.5 million Indians who fought the World War II versus only 40,000 Britishers. So that's something that none of us have heard of. And even more complex characters, while we will definitely get to Savarkar, but the most complex character in history, according to me, was Mahatma Gandhi. I think for the first time while I was reading your book, I got to know that on the 12th of January, 1948, Mahatma Gandhi had pledged to go on a fast till he died if 50 crores of funds, the partition funds, weren't released to Pakistan. None of us know about it unless we watch a podcast or we read books or we probably research about it. He was then assassinated about 18 days or 20 days later. But this was so staggering for me to even learn. I'm sure you've talked about Mahatma Gandhi a lot, but how did you...
Without, of course, that prefix.
Yeah. I think I've again read that you've gone through about 11,000 documents, court documents, to just read and learn about MK Gandhi. Could you shed some light on
his
him?
assassination? Only the Gandhi trial papers, which are in the National Archives of India, 11,000 pages of those. And you're right, these people, Godse, Apte, and others who did the heinous crime of, murder can never be condoned of anybody. But they were not professional murderers or anything. So they were young men who were seeing what was happening in the scourge of partition. They had visited Noakhali. They had seen the direct action day in Calcutta. We're seeing what is happening in Bangladesh in front of our eyes, just yesterday. So for these young people who saw all of that, they were burning with a sense of revenge. Their first plan was, let's all go to Pakistan, the new assembly in Pakistan, let's bomb it when Jinnah and everyone is inside. Now, how are you going to take all explosives, go across the border, bomb it? Those attention for detail was not their best strength. They just wanted to do that youth, garam khoon. Then that failed. Then they thought the Nizam of Hyderabad was prevaricating about accession to India. So, and from Maharashtra to Hyderabad state, they were central provinces, that side, the treasury of the Nizam was to go a cart carrying all these tax collections or whatever. They wanted to loot that, but that also failed. Then around 12th of January, as you rightly said, Godse and Apte were actually working in a newspaper that he was handling, Agrani. And in that this thing comes that Gandhi had gone on a fast unto death to give 50 crores to Pakistan. Now, when the division of the subcontinent was happening, there were a treaty that was signed that assets and liabilities will be equally divided, and India owed Pakistan that money. Now, even Nehru and of course Patel and others felt that this could be a good lever to twist Pakistan's arm, because at the same time you had those tribes who were invading Kashmir and putting Maharaja Hari Singh in a lot of pressure. So if we stop this fund is going to go for them to arm themselves against us. Now, Gandhi's thing was, no, it's a gentleman's promise. We have done it, so we have to give this. And if you don't, I'm going to, fast unto death. And even in the movie, Attenborough's movie, you see, a lot of these refugees were coming from, West and East Pakistan. They were languishing in the streets of Delhi. I think it was Om Puri who plays that role. He comes and throws one roti at him and say, "Mar jao tum," and so on, right? So that was actually, it had happened. Those are the eyewitnesses where these refugees come and say, if that old man wants to die, let him die. So there was that surge of lot of, they were seeing all this and not being able to do much about it. And so I think in a whim, these guys decide that, okay, we had to take revenge on somebody, so let's take it on him because this man is dangerous according to them for the national security. And they executed it in all of 18 days, and it was in my book on Savarkar, the volume 2, talks in detail about this plan. In fact, on 20th of January, they make a first attempt to kill Gandhi. It was at the Birla House, and Madan Lal Pahwa, one of their associates, goes and throws a bomb at his prayer meeting. It is botched up. Madan Lal is actually caught. So 20th of Jan to 30th of Jan, they were already 10 days. He was in the custody of the Delhi police, and he, lets out all the secrets. Who's behind it? What is the modus operandi? And this Godse and all, they were not, as I said, professional killers. So they left clues at every possible place. In fact, even in the hotel that they stayed in Delhi, by mistake, he leaves his shirt there, and that has his initials, embroidered on it, NVG, Nathuram Vinayak Godse. And so there are circumstantial evidence, there is proof. There was a Nagarwala who was the commissioner of police who was investigating this. Now these guys take a written testimony of Madan Lal Pahwa, and he writes in Persian, Urdu script, because even Punjabis, before Gurmukhi, Persian script was very popular there. Now in that he has written everything. Now to the Delhi police send it to Bombay police. Now that fellow who's supposed to come with that letter, he's so lax about it. Beach mein he just gets down at Prayagraj to take a dip in the Sangam. Aram se he comes by, I think, 29th or 30th January morning. And by the time the Bombay police even get hold of this letter, by evening, he's assassinated. So these 10 days were so crucial, and so many clues were already been given, and it was criminal on the part of the government of that time to actually let this happen. So there are numerous things that, and then the trial that goes on, and so it's a very, very fascinating, motley of characters who are there. Godse, Apte. Godse is this man. Nathuram. He was his he was supposed to be, I mean, in his family there was some superstition that all the male children are going to die. There was some curse of somebody, and so to trick that whoever had given that curse, they had started dressing up this boy as a girl, and they used to put the nath, which is the Maharashtrian ring, and that's how his name became Nathuram. And so he used to apparently be very effeminate, very this sort of a person. And then you had a very colorful guy called Apte, who was his associate, who actually has an affair with a Christian teacher, Manorama Sylvie or someone. And so all those details of these people and all the comedy of errors, on 30th January morning, these people are practicing how to shoot. That afternoon, they get the goddamn gun also only, I think, a day before or something from Gwalior. Parchure, there's one Dr. Parchure who's there who gives this gun. And 3 o'clock or something, one fellow is, trying this. Then that alerts the police in the vicinity. They come looking for it. These people have hidden the gun in one of those jungles. And then they said, no, we were just trying some, chemistry experiment kind of a thing. And this is the comedy of errors. And in the process, this man also gets killed. And that's the... History had a different turn after that. So I think there are numerous streams of history also which are very fascinating. And I think there too, I think your larger question was, do we romanticize like we underestimate so many other facets of our history? Even the freedom movement, it is shown to us like that Richard Attenborough film, frame to frame, De di hame azadi, bina khadg bina dhal, Sabarmati ke sant tune kar diya kamal. No, I mean, I'm not disparaging the greatness of that movement. It was a very, very important movement to instill in Indians who never think. 2 Indians, 3 Indians, if you put them in a room, they'll have, I think, 20 million opinions, views, fights, all of that. So to give that national aspiration, a mass uprising, the desire for freedom, I think the Congress movement was important in that. But was that the only reason why we got freedom? Absolutely not. Because right from the early, I mean, I'm not even talking of the, Vellore mutiny or the Maradu Pandyans and all their, revolts. But 1857, when first which Savarkar calls the first war of Indian independence, when that sense of wanting to get rid of the British came, till 1946, the British called that the Sepoy Mutiny, which he elevated in stature by calling it the first war of independence. But we still call what is in 1946 the naval mutiny in Bombay. Now this happens in February 1946. It should ideally be called the last war of independence, because 3 weeks after that you had the cabinet mission plan sent to give freedom to this country, and Mountbatten specifically had the task that from that wreckage you take whatever possible and come out of it. And that's why they left with such a mess. It was a hurried partition, the largest displacement in human history in recent modern times, and so many lives lost and all of that. But from 1857 to 1946, this unending chain of armed resistance that was offered in parallel to the mass movement of non-violence. I think that is almost a footnote in our history books or the public imagination. In history books, in fact, as late as 2016, you had Bhagat Singh's descendants write to the then HRD minister Smriti Irani saying, I think in the Delhi University books, Bhagat Singh, Bagha Jatin, all these people were called revolutionary terrorists. The word terrorists used for them. Now a young person who's simultaneously looking at what is happening in Kashmir or the Naxal problem or whatever else it is, and you're also saying Bhagat Singh and all these people are terrorists, what does that make in their mind? So these people write to the HRD minister saying this is an affront to our ancestor who gave up his life for the cause of the country, and how can you even coin this term? So I think there are those multiple strains even in our freedom movement which we are not told about.
I think even the Khilafat movement is so misunderstood. Our version of what we know of the Khilafat movement and what actually happened and what the intentions were so different. We were actually trying to get freedom for the Turkish.
Yeah. Yeah, the word play, khilafat, अंग्रेजों के खिलाफ, khilafat. But that is to the establishment of a pan-Islamic caliphate. And the people of Turkey themselves did not want the caliph to be there. You had Mustafa Kemal Ataturk who comes in there. And here we were actually telling the Muslims of India that you participate in our non-cooperation movement. In return, we will support your desire to have a caliph sitting there in Turkey. How does it matter to an Indian of any religion, any faith, as to who rules in which country? And this is and Gandhi had very specifically given the assurance that in 1 year we will get Swaraj, and in 1 year we will also establish the caliphate there, the khilafat. Now you're a slave country. The British have won the First World War whole and square against Turkey. They have a right to choose who the successor is. Now a slave country, some 100 people, black jhanda if they show, I mean, how will they get so, scared that they will tell, okay, as you wish, we will put whoever you are. I mean, it fails common logic. And so you are bartering, you are taking people on a highly communal issue. And that is where I think Savarkar, not only Savarkar, even within the Congress, you had people like Motilal Nehru, you had people like Annie Besant, all of them protesting against this, saying you're playing with fire. It's a communal issue. The independence of India should be of great importance to every Indian, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, whatever. You don't have to pawn it or do a barter system that you do this, in return I'll help you. And why does it matter to an Indian Muslim today whether someone sits there or not? Are you playing to the larger ummah, which is what is happening even today, if you see the unending chain of events? And at that time the seeds of the separatism had already started being sown. You had the Muslim League coming up in 1906. You had the Lucknow Pact and separate electorates in 1916. And 4 years later, you have this Khilafat thing. And Swaraj did not come in 1 year. Obviously, Caliph was not established there. Now, what happens when you play with fire and you mobilize people on this thing? The outcome was a series of carnages, communal carnages all over India through the 1920s. And British records say before only during some Ganesh procession or Durga Visarjan or Eid, Muharram, that is when there would be communal riots. But after this, every year, every second day, every province would go up in communal riots. And the biggest manifestation of that was the Mopla carnage in Malabar in 1921. And even then, when that happens, someone like Gandhi justifies it and says they are only brave men who are fighting for the cause of their religion. Even Dr. Ambedkar castigates him in his book about this. And few years later, you have Swami Shraddhanand of the Arya Samaj, who was doing a lot of Ghar Wapsi, Shuddhi movement. He was killed by a Muslim fanatic called Abdul Rashid. And then Gandhi is on record saying that my dear brother Abdul Rashid, I do not consider him as a criminal. We have to go into the mind of that person to understand why he did that. But unfortunately, 20 years, look at the poetic irony. 20 years later, the same man is killed by someone else. His followers did not say, my dear brother Godse, let us get into his mind to in fact, it was the opposite. You had lot of Congress people involved in what is a very little known fact of our history, which is a carnage of Maharashtrian Brahmins in 1948. What started only with the Chitpavan Brahmins, because Godse and Apte belonged to that community, but later the Deshasthas too, and entire villages almost ethnically cleansed, most of them sent out from these places, and not an FIR filed, no justice. There was one Justice Koyaji Commission which the Maharaja of Kolhapur had instituted, which spoke about this. There are Congress leaders, including Dwarka Prasad Mishra, who was the central provinces, Madhya Pradesh Home Minister, who says these were Congress goons who led this thing, And so an apostle of non-violence is killed, and in 6 hours to retaliate against that, you go on a violent spree. So what happens to that philosophy? What happens? How much did it touch people's lives? So I think there are these multiple layers and nuances which are so important in history.
So speaking of layers, I think the most beautiful character that I happened to read was Vinayak Damodar Sarwarkar, also known as Veer Sarwarkar. I think the most interesting thing for me was the last he was talked about in the 1960s, and then the next he was talked about in 2019 when you wrote your book. Not much was spoken about him throughout in our history. I honestly didn't know about him until I read your book. I can be as honest as possible. We didn't hear of him, but he played such a pivotal role because back then, the book that he wrote from the India House, Britishers had even banned him, like they had banned the book even before it was published, and how he tried escaping the entire imprisonment through France, and then, I mean, finally, Sarwarkar at the age of 26 was given 50 years of imprisonment. He was at least given the imprisonment, but I think he got out a little sooner than that. But such a complex character, but so beautiful in terms of how back then they were trying to smuggle arms, create bombs. I think he was one among the first people to instill this seed of Krantikari in a Krantikari nature, I felt. Any thoughts, and why did this character intrigue you, sir? I think firstly, how did you stumble upon him and what made you write about him?
No, I think, even I never read about him I don't know how it is now, but CBSE textbooks then didn't have any mention of him. They didn't even talk about Kala Pani or Port Blair, where, forget Savarkar for a minute, but in Port Blair, in those dungeons of hell, the barbaric treatment, and today, if Britain had to apologize for the Jallianwala Bagh after so many, decades, they have to apologize first for what they did to our ancestors in Port Blair. The kind of inhuman, even the basic minimum human facilities that an individual needs to be given, that being denied to them, rotten food given to most of them, leading to most of them ending up with diarrhea, and you had fixed timings to go to the washroom, and if you had diarrhea and if you had to visit repeatedly, you were urinating and defecating in your own cell, those small narrow cells.
You couldn't even stand.
You couldn't even stand, and you some of you might have gone to the Port Blair, this one, and people, this Koluka Bail punishment, where go round and round the oil grinding mill and extract 30 pounds of oil. It was measured, and even if there was 1 ounce in the blazing heat of Port Blair, and while you're doing that, if you are parched and if you want water is not given to you, and if you are 1 ounce less, you are whiplashed. You're not given dinner, which no one anyway wanted to eat, that bad dinner which had pieces of reptiles and all of that inside it. Leeches, biting into your skin, no medical facilities, handing... Water is not given to you. Sorry? Was that a voice from... So, Savarkar wrote a book which was called Echo from the Andamans. Like, this sounds like me. Yes, I think we are helping some spirits out there. So,
but 27 years of that torture, where his cell was...
He was there for 11 years, and he was given this thing for 50 years, 52 transportations for life, 25 plus 25, 50 years. Now, the point is, along with him, there were so many, 100 plus political prisoners. Now, these were all young men who were in their late teens, early 20s, whose entire career and lives, a glorious life led right in front of them. And these people got caught. They were largely from Bengal, some from Maharashtra, later a lot from Punjab, the Gadar movement, which was launched there, the Bengali revolutionaries, Anushilan Samiti, and, all these various Krantikari groups there. And Savarkar's group was called Abhinav Bharat. And I would not say he lit the lamp of revolution and all that, because, we also need to have a little composure in our extolation of someone. Already Maharashtra had, movements by people like Vasudev Balwant Phadke, you had the Chafekar brothers, and in Bengal, simultaneously, you had Khudiram Bose, Prafulla Chaki, Aurobindo Ghosh, who later became Sri Aurobindo, then Barin Ghosh. Now, several of these people, 100 plus political political prisoners lying like this, rotting in the dark dungeons of Kalapani. And many of them would either commit suicide or some of them actually went insane. In fact, the British had to start an entire asylum in a place which is there called Haddo Island, just because the number of people who went insane, unable to bear this torture, electric shocks, this Koluka Bell punishment. Now that's what, when we look around and ask ourselves, can we as a nation name 10 people or 5 people who suffered and died or suffered there for years together in Kalapani? Forget Savarkar and all the controversies, those petitions and all that. The other people who were there, we will not be able to. And you see, the ingratitude of a nation, of a people, it has karmic effect, I think, over successive generations. These young men sacrifice their youth, their life, their dreams for all of us today to be in this, breathe in this fresh air and be independent. And we can't even do that much to remember some of their names. People should make that Kalapani as actually a Tirth Sthan. Everyone, children should be taken there from schools to at least go and stand. There's a plaque which has all the names of all the people who were there, from which state. I think let us at least start there by imbibing these people and paying some gratitude and a quiet prayer for their souls and spirits, that without you guys we would not be where we are. And mind you, not a single Congress worker was ever sent to Kalapani. It was only people who were from the 5-star present facility. It was only people from the revolutionary movement, the Sashastra Kranti, who were put along with the worst of criminals, rapists, dacoits, murderers, and all kinds of people. These people were put there. They were political prisoners. And that is what Savarkar constantly, argued in those infamous petitions, saying, let us know what our status is. Are we a common criminal or are we a political prisoner? Even in the best of countries, political prisoners are treated with dignity. And so do you have that in you? And so, and as I said, most of these were such young people who didn't even know English. So this man, who was a law-trained barrister from London, so he was almost being like their spokesperson, writing petitions on their behalf. In fact, in one of those infamous petitions in 1917, he says, if my name constitutes an obstacle in the release of all the other prisoners, then delete my name and release the others, and that will give me as much satisfaction as my own release would do. So, and most of them in those chronicles you see of Ulaskar Dutt and several others who write, Barin Ghosh, that they used to call Savarkar as Bada Babu. He is the Bada Babu, Vilayati Babu, who's learned English and British law, and he will be our spokesperson. So I think that context also is very important, to know what all has gone through. And we say, de di azadi, kisne de di? We chheen ke liye humne. We fought for it with
khoon pasina
karke. Nobody gave, de di hame az. Nobody gave it to us on a platter. We fought for it with life. And these people who suffered, who died, who went insane, it's a travesty to say bina dhal, bina bhal, they were of the Sashastra Kranti movement. So both these movements are equally important. Not disparage one or the other, but don't make another a footnote. Now, Bhagat Singh, Sukhdev, Rajguru, these are mentioned, but how is the common idea that these were chutput ghatnaएं, they were young people, garam khoon, that's what, and they just took a bomb, threw it at someone, and then they were executed. That's all. It's a small little footnote. But these movements actually running coordinatedly across provinces within India, where is Maharashtra and where is Bengal, and they actually, through the underground movement, are working in tandem. And during the Gadar movement, during the First World War, these failed, no doubt, but then you had transcontinental communication. India, Germany, then you had, Southeast Asia and Singapore. The Gadarites, who organized themselves in Canada and San Francisco, planning a simultaneous rebellion in the British Indian Army. You mentioned that there were 2.5 million soldiers, of which only 40,000 were British. The rest were Indians. Now, even General Dyer took all those people who actually shot. They were Indians who shot on their own brothers and sisters. The fellow who gave the order was British. So the revolutionary movement, the idea was just this, that what happened in 1857? Can you create an insurrection in the British Indian Army? of this large number, 2.5 million, even 1%, 10%, if they can be brought over to the patriotic side, then the sun will set on the British Empire. And the culmination of all these efforts was what Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, Rash Bihari Bose, who set up the Indian National Army, managed to do effectively, which all these others had failed. And the British are on record saying that that is what made them realize that we cannot control this large colony if there is infiltration. And when the naval mutiny happened, and that moved even to the army units, in various parts, Madras, Jabalpur, Karachi, and other places. They said, no, this is going to be a repeat of 1857. Let's not do that. So I think this balance, even just as we spoke about litany of wars, about regional balance, where India is not only Delhi history, but all parts of Bharat. At the same time, these various streams which contributed to us being a free nation, I think that holistic view of history is what is important.
Absolutely. And I think to add on, not only did they suffer, their families also suffered so much backlash. I think Sarwarkar on 26 February 1966 self-inflicted death after so much pain and agony that he went through right from the age of 26. So I think a lot of families also back then suffered a lot. Speaking of history and coming to, like you said about Delhi, it will be incomplete if we don't talk about Karnataka. And I think the person who shaped Karnataka's history to a drastic extent, shaped, again, maybe a heavy word, but Tipu Sultan and Hyder Ali, while so as we like to believe, sir, I think, only if we read the book, we know more about the details, but Tipu has always been a hero. Recently, Tipu Jayanti was also commemorated. So, I think you wrote about Tipu first, you wrote about Mysore first in 2008, and after that you took a vow to not write because of a lot of agony. I think you wrote about 10, 12 years later, and you started this beautiful book about Tipu Sultan. Very barbaric. I think beautiful would probably be the wrong word, but very detailed in terms of every single action that Hyder Ali and Tipu Sultan took and how he met his tragic end. I'd like to ask you firstly about the backlash that you faced back then living in Karnataka, and how much of an effect it had on you. You had to literally stop writing. Secondly, sir, a little about Tipu Sultan from you to our readers. Some of us have read the book, but a lot of us, like I said, still celebrate him as a hero back.
Get intimidated by the size also. So. Well, yeah, when that first book on Mysore came, I was probably 26 or 27 years old, literally a babe in the woods, not knowing all the landmines that exist in the world of Indian history writing. I thought history writing meant a search for the truth, but it was much more, many layers than that. So there was, in fact, at Bangalore, in the Bangalore International Center, there was a lecture on the interregnum period. So these 40 years of takeover by Hyder and Tipu from the Wadiyars is known as the interregnum or the intermission, where a regular government is usurped and someone else takes over. Now, in this lecture there, all of the story of Hyder and what happened and this, all of that, Shant, everyone was quiet and peaceful. At one point where I started reading Tipu's own letters, where he says, go to Calicut. In Calicut, I have converted 4 lakh Kafirs. I have killed. So this person is gloating himself. And I said, I'm just reading straight from the horse's mouth, verbatim. And suddenly the group of the audience, which was otherwise like this, very nice and civilized, they suddenly, some section erupted in protest. Paper rockets were hurled at the stage, maybe to test Tipu's rockets, technology. And the organizers were not as efficient as Sapna, so they did not want any law and order problem there. So the lecture was stopped midway and I was taken away to the backstage. But my poor father was sitting in the first row, and I think some Tipu fan club or something like that, they came with a pamphlet and they thrust it in his hand and said, you have only one son. If you want him to live long, please ask him to zip it. So, and then obviously there was a furor at home, and my bad luck. A few weeks later, Deccan Herald was doing a series on the Diwans of Mysore, and the first and the last article that came from me, the series itself got scrapped because the first article was on Diwan Purnaya, who was a Diwan both for Haidar, then Tipu also, and later for the Wadeyar also. A very, very fascinating character. A Madhva Brahmin who knew how to run with the hare, hunt with the hounds. And so this man had some tragic incidents in his life where his own niece is found in the harem of Tipu. And she's, molested by the soldiers when she's going for a ritual bath in the Kaveri, and he doesn't offer help. And in one of the open darbars, he asks, you're such an intelligent guy, so why don't you convert to our fold? And he's, haan ji huzur, he says, and runs away. But his mother, Tipu's mother, was a very overpowering woman, so she comes. She used to always sit through the darbar, and she came out of the parda and is supposed to have scolded him, saying, your father never did such things. If you do these type of things, people are going to go against you, so you better mind your ways before it's too late. So I just mentioned these facts, and for that there was again a furor outside the Deccan Herald office, which was I think in MG Road. And I was working then in a corporate company, and the editor called me that afternoon saying, a huge group has assembled here and they are asking for your apology. I said, over my dead body. I'm not going to give an apology. Everything I have written is based on facts. And the editor was actually very generous. She said, we will give you twice the length of the article that we gave him. You rebut him. But these guys were not the kinds who will write articles. So they had to do something to show that they have achieved. So they burnt some effigy of mine there in MG Road. Now
that was your profile picture for the longest time. Talk about being a rebellion.
Yeah, I said, nazar utar gayi na. So many people have burnt your effigy and all that, so you make it your awkward profile. But my mother used to keep very poor health, and she literally made me take a vow that in future you're not going to talk about Tipu Sultan or write about him. And when your mother tells something, you have no other option but to listen. So you're not an influential mind at all. So, so I kept the promise till the time she was with us, and we lost her in 2018. And I thought, okay, when the person you've given the promise to is not there, then the promise also is infructuous. So, break the promise with the prayer that from whichever heaven she is, she'll protect me. Luckily, so far, I think the dil ki bhadas, 10 years of suppressed emotions, so it flowed in so many pages. And I think that's how these 900 plus pages came through, where every little detail. And the best part is, Tipu Sultan was a very, very educated, literate man, a man of letters. So he used to write, and such a control freak. Every time he used to send these embassies abroad to the Middle East, to France, to Louis XVI's, court, to the Turkey Sultan, all these people, Constantinople. He used to write letters to those fellows on a day-to-day basis. Today you do like this, then you do like this. Everything he used to control sitting in Srirangapatna. And those letters, then all his letters to his various generals in the war, and what all he has done himself, with a lot of gloating. I killed so many people, I converted so many people, was born as a medal of honor. What he was done in Coorg, Kodagu, so where to Zainul Abidin Shustri, one of his generals, he writes, I think in 1786 or so, that not only the prisoners who are alive, even the dead have to be converted. Dead bodies to be circumcised and converted. The thing is, these are straight from the horse's mouth. Now, how do you discount that and say, no, he was exaggerating? If crimes are a virtue, that itself is a problem. You're actually projecting your crimes as something to gloat over is a bigger problem than saying that's an exaggeration. And so someone I was saying just 50 years, many of us in our lifetimes, we have seen the excesses of emergency and what happened, which we just 25th June went past by. In 50 years, there are so many versions, there's so much of whitewash, there's so much of change and distortion, exaggeration on all sides. Imagine 200 years, imagine thousands of years, there's so much of distortion that is possible. But if you go back to the primary sources, what does our hero himself say about what he has done in life, I think that gives a very different picture, and it lives in public memory. You have the Mandya Mayangars of Melkote and Srirangpatna, not really Melkote. That's a wrong myth that it was Melkote Iyengars, but this was the Bharadwaj Gotra, the Iyengars Mandyam, who were killed, 700 of them, men, women and children on the Naraka Chaturdashi, and to this day that community does not celebrate Diwali when all of us do. So this is a living memory in all their lives, and so you cannot discount that saying this is exaggeration. That is their lived memory. Similarly, the Mangalore Christians, they have a lot of angst about this, even to this day, the Archdiocese of Mangalore. And so when this Tipu Jayanti thing happened, you had communities coming out. I don't care much of the politics. Whatever Congress does, BJP will oppose. Whatever BJP does, Congress will oppose. But these communities, the Mangalore Christians had no common politics with the BJP, I'm sure. So, but still, they also came out in protest against this, as did the Kodavas. To this day, the Kodavas commemorate 12th of December as Martyrs' Day.
Yes.
Because in 1785, at a place called Devati Param, a large group of them were called. They were asked to come unarmed for negotiations, and they trusted him and came, and there was a mass massacre. And so these stories are very much a part of folklore, of intergenerational trauma and memory, and so that cannot be discounted.
I think ₹3 and ₹5 was offered back then for a head of a person, and
Both
about
Purgis as well as the Nayars in
Yes.
Kerala, Malabar.
and Ash Wednesday by the Christians, 80,000 Christians were massacred. And I think the 300-kilometer march, that was the most barbaric for me, I think.
And not only, I mean, pregnant women also being made to march, and many of them, and they write this, there's a Kannada manuscript called the Barkur manuscript, which is there with the Mangalore diocese, and they talk about this, that, you know, women delivering babies on the way, either the mother or the child dying because of this, no way to even do a funeral rite of that, and, you know, wolves and dogs, others eating these corpses. In Mangalore, there is this Nettaru Kere, which in Tulu, Nettaru, I think means blood. So blood-stricken lake, which was of the Mangalore Christians. So those people's sentiments also do matter, right? I mean, they still have this as a living memory after 250 years. It's not some archival project for academic interest we are trying to, you know, resurrect. This is their living truth. So how do you discount that while glorifying a person? I constantly keep saying he was a brave soldier. He fought. He hated the British. He fought all his life, and as you said, a tragic end, which was mostly of his own making, in the last and final Anglo-Mysore War of Srirangpatna in May 1799. Literally being the only person defending his kingdom and dying anonymously there in the ramparts of the fort. Those things are particularly, of course, there. I mean, it took the British 40 years to subjugate this province, 4 Anglo-Mysore wars. And in the first 2 wars, which his father Hyder fought, the British were beaten black and blue and summarily, you know, defeated. But both the wars that Tipu fought, he lost. The third war, he lost half his kingdom. He had to give away his 2 sons as hostages, 3 crores or something as war indemnity. And in the fourth, he lost his life. But even that doesn't take away his bravery. But calling him a freedom fighter and all of that, you know, by the same group, interestingly, of a group of Marxist historians who say there was no India till the British Raj was established. Now, if there was no India, then what India freedom fighting was he doing for? You can't have it both ways, right? So either there was an India for which he fought, or there was nothing. And the British Empire after 1858 and Queen Victoria's proclamation, that is when India happened. So, and he was taking the support of the French to defeat the British, and the French were no less colonial in their ambitions. We saw that in the Carnatic wars that were fought. So I think there are multiple layers there too. And so the common subtext is history cannot be seen in a very simplistic manner. The nuances and the multiple layers need to be understood.
Talking about another book that you've written, Waiting for Shiva, I think the title itself has a strong message there, but it's also a very big oxymoron to have Gyan Vapi as the name of a mosque. So talking about Kashi, I think oldest city in the world, and coincidentally I happened to visit the Kashi Vishwanath temple on a Friday in the evening, where it was, I was a little moved when I entered the premises because I saw a couple of people praying namaz right adjacent to the temple, and then we had to walk into the well, and we got the well water. I think they give you 3 times for 3 different reasons. But when I came back and when I happened to read your book, which happened a lot later, I think I was blown. What felt like a beautiful moment of, coexistence, right? It changed my perspective when I read the book, and when I realized that how different it actually is in reality, of how, it was plundered, and even today we are paying the price for it. The entire court discussion is still going on, and I think the recent, I think the petition was filed again in the Mata's name rather than the deity's name, so we could, have the entire court case expedited. But how did Waiting for Shiva come about? Because being a true blue historian, writing about something that again is more prevalent with our scriptures, somebody who's, it's in the Puranas. It's not something that you can back it up by saying, okay, this is historical, this is something that I bought from this archives, and this is something that I quoted from here. If you're writing a book on a deity, it takes a lot more, I think, research, courage, because you really have to find that right balance between religion and history.
Well, our history is enshrined in religious scriptures, which is what, is, in the midst of all those fanciful tales that our Puranas convey, and that's why the Puranas, the Mahabharata and Ramayana, collectively called Itihasa. It thus happened, ye aise hua tha. So, in that there is a kernel of truth amidst all the foliage, which is a tough task to extract, honestly. All the chronologies, I'm sure all of you would know, there's so much of battle about the dating of the Mahabharata itself. So many people saying 5561 BC, someone says 3067, 31, lots of things. So they're all basing it on many things, including Puranic literature, but that's a separate story. But this is not so much about the deity. I'm nobody to, write about Bhagwan Shiv, but it is more on the history of the Kashi Vishwanath Mandir, and it was again very serendipitously, it was a discussion with Advocate Vishnu Shankar Jain, who along with his father Hari Shankar Jain ji have been fighting several such cases single-handedly without any help from any organization, political party, government, etc. And so he was in a lit fest, we met, and he was generally mentioning that every day, those days, the Gyanvapi case was in the news. But do we as a country even know what is it we are fighting for? Okay, some dispute happening in Uttar Pradesh, we don't care. But it has a long history. Our ancestors did not give up on this place for 1,000 years. 1,000 years of pushback, repeated attacks, assaults. We heard about Somnath, but what happened to Vishwanath? So 1194 was when first Kutubuddin Aibak first comes and plunders Kashi, and the Vishwanath Mandir is broken at that time. And contemporary chroniclers like Hassan Nizami and all of these people, with a lot of pride, they again write, just like what we saw with Tipu, that 1,000 temples were destroyed in this one attack, and the amount of wealth was taken away on 18 elephants and hundreds of camels, 300 and taken back to Delhi. Now, after that, the second round of attacks and destruction happens with Razia Sultan. She rules only for 4 years, and she has so much of trouble in Delhi to keep her kingdom. In that, she finds time to come and destroy Vishwanath Mandir, and we immortalize her through Hema Malini and romance stories about her. But anyway, so Razia was the next. There's a Razia Masjid which is there even now there. And a few, almost 100 years later, you had the Jaunpur Sharki Nawabs who did this. Then in 1494-96, we had Sikandar Lodi, who completely plundered Kashi, and every temple was razed to the ground. And Aurangzeb was the last we only think of Aurangzeb, which was 1669. Now, the normal, natural question that would come to your mind is, if it was already destroyed by Qutbuddin Aibak, what did the others come and destroy? Now, every time one fellow destroyed, close to that, we would rebuild another temple when things became a little quiet. We never gave up on that place. And that was based on the element of faith that once a Hindu temple, always a Hindu temple, because you have done a pran pratishtha of the murti, a Jagrit deity, a human being, which you've invoked and put there. Now, just by you do a vidhivat visarjan of that, like you do during Ganesh visarjan or Durga, then the deity goes away. But if you just cut off its head or something, then the divinity is still there. That is the belief. And so in the closest periphery or circumference, we'll build another one. And who are the people who are building that? Now, 1194 I mentioned as one milestone of first destruction. Barely 15 years later, in 1212, you had a Bengal ruler called Vishwarupa of the Sena dynasty, who comes to Kashi, and right in the middle of the city, he erects a Vijay Sthambh, a victory pillar. And on that, the inscription says, "This city belongs to Vishwanath." So it was the heights of the Delhi Sultanate, so he couldn't rebuild a grand temple. So at least copyright, he marked it there that this is ours. Now, after that, I talked about the Razia Sultan, 1236 to 1240. Now, around that time, just after she destroys even that, 1250, you had a businessman from Gujarat called Seth Vastupal, who gives a large amount of money to build a magnificent temple of Vishwanath there. And roll back again to 1276 or so, another 26 years. From our own Karnataka, you had the Hoysala ruler called Veera Narasimha III, who donates an entire village in Karnataka called Hebbale with the Shilalekha, which says that all the proceeds of revenue that come from this village will go to the Tirthayatris who want to go to Kashi to see Vishwanath, because for us to go and worship in our own temples, we had to pay jizya tax to the Sultanate. So those who could not afford it, this Maharaja gives that, saying you can use this. And he, in that inscription, he says this is all surrendered to the lotus feet of Vishwanath. So if you see a ruler from Bengal, Eastern India, Gujarat businessman from Western India, South Indian ruler, Hoysala ruler from our state, all of them contributing to the construction of a temple in distant North India. And today we are talking of North India is different, South India is different. None of them said Hindi they are speaking, what does it matter to us, we have 100 temples here. So when these people say India was not a nation and all that, I think it is, a nation is not just borders and political boundaries and some laws that you can change, codify. Our constitution is born out of the civilizational strength of the country and not vice versa. So this sense of common, this thing that this is something so important to us. It was called the Moksha Nagari, one of the 7 Mukti Puris, Avantika, Kashi, Kanchi, all these Puri and so on. Kashi was one where Bhagwan Shiv himself in the Skanda Puran gives the assurance to Devi Parvati that anybody who leaves his mortal coil in this place, when the soul comes out, I will chant the Tarak Ram mantra in their ear and give them moksha. Now all the Sanatan faiths, whether it is Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, moksha, nirvana, this is the quest of these all our faiths, right? And here you're getting a blank check, you're getting an assurance that if you die here, I'll give you. So that's why a part of India wanted a slice of this place. And so it's almost a microcosm of the whole country. And more than, these are royal families and people. Now forget them. Now in the 12th and 13th century, when I was talking of all these Jaunpur Nawabs and Lodhis, the heights of the Delhi Sultanate, at that time, Kashi, which was a seat of Sanskrit learning and so on, it had completely perished. In that time, you had Brahmin families from Karnataka and Maharashtra called the Dakshini Pandits, who go all the way to Kashi. There were 4 families, Shesha, Mauni, Bhatta and Dharmadikari. They migrate to Kashi. Imagine their courage to live amidst a hostile kingdom and to revive the sense of scholarship and the loss of memory that had started happening of our own place, its importance. So you had so many of these parishishtas that were being written to our Puranas. You had the Kashi Khanda written to the Skanda Puran. You had the Kashi Rahasya written to the Vayu Purana, I suppose. And so many of these that were written. And simultaneously, these were getting translated into other languages. So you had the Vijayanagar Empire sponsoring the Kashi Khanda into Telugu, which a Kavi there was... writing, and the Guru Charitra in Marathi talking about the same things of, Kashi Khanda in Marathi. So almost every part of the country feeling that sense of oneness and ownership with this place. And when finally, 1669, you had Aurangzeb destroying this place. Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was alive, and it said that his mother, Mata Jijabai, was very angry, and she literally tells him, if you're a man enough, this is the goal of your life, to re-establish this temple. And from then on, the foundation of the Maratha Empire also constantly, whether it was Baji Rao or whether it was Nana Sahib Peshwa or Madhav Rao, it was negotiations with first the Mughals, then the Awadh Nawabs, and then the East India Company to give us these sites back, Kashi, Ayodhya, Mathura, and all these places. And in fact, the Tipu Sultan War, Nana Fadnavis, when he joins that, he puts that as one of the clauses with Cornwallis, saying, we will participate if you give us these places back. But of course, that doesn't happen. So, and finally, when force did not work, it was again a Maratha queen, Devi Ahilyabai Holkar, who in 1778, and we celebrate her 300th year of her birth this year, which is itself momentous, and a lady who epitomizes, you have contrast of rulership, governance, a contemporary of Tipu Sultan, almost the same. She died in 1796, he in 1799. This lady was running a welfare state to such an extent that, she was keeping water even for stray dogs, cats, birds in summer. And she was, her own words are that when I'm the queen of this place, I am like a mother, not only to the human beings, but to all the living beings in my kingdom. And what could not be reconstructed by force, by all these people, brave men who were fighting wars, this lady, manages to do that, where Kashi Vishwanath, Somnath, almost some, 27, 30, 40 temples all across India reconstructed, which was destroyed by people there. And an emotional integration of the country too. Water from the Ganga brought to temples in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, so that sense, and Kaveri water from here taken there, to bring that sense of oneness unity among people, and this welfare state. That's why called Mai Sahab. Everyone, never called her the queen. Even to this day, I'm told that many people in Indore, Maheshwar, where she ruled from, if there's a event in their family, a marriage or something, they'll go and Mai Sahab will give the first invite to. So that is the love you generate, the same contemporary of the same man whom we valorize and tell. We don't celebrate an Ahilyabai Jayanti, do we? Which is the saddest part of how we look at our past. And so it was this lady who built this, what we see today in Kashi was a Maratha reconstruction of the original temple which she built. And a few decades later, you had Maharaja Ranjit Singh, a Sikh Maharaja who gold plates the shikhars that you see today in the Vishwanath Mandir.
800 kgs.
Yeah, you've done your research well. I had also forgotten that. But today we are told Hindus and Sikhs are different and all of this. So all these myths of division among us as Indians, if you actually have a good look at our history, I think they can be just dispelled in no time. And this book was that. It was the continuous and unending struggle of our forefathers to the redemption of these places which are of civilizational importance to us. It has nothing to do with any political party. They may just be coincidentally participants in it, or any ideological cohort. It is not their fight, it is everyone's fight. In fact, Baba Sahib Purandare, the biographer of Shivaji Maharaj, it's a poetic liberty. He says when Shivaji is on his deathbed, they tell him that, prasthan kijiye to your next world with peace. And he's supposed to have said, how do I go in peace when my Vishwanath is in shackles? So there is, I say this often, there are these 5 rinas we have. We have Deva Rina, to the gods who we believe created us, to the Rishi Rina who created all the knowledge for us. We have Manushya Rina, to our fellow beings because of whom we live. We have Bhuta Rina, to all the environment, animals, plants and other things. But another 5th Rina, which is Pitra Rina, to our ancestors. And a lot of these wars, these battles which are going on in courts, you can look at it in a political way. Political parties may exploit it for their, petty politics. But for us who are not part of that politics, I think it's a larger civilizational goal. And as I said, a true obligation and a rin that we have to our ancestors.
I think so. That's absolutely amazing. While I can go on and on and on, I just have,
people.
I have one last question. How many badams do we have to eat a day to have a memory like you? You have all the numbers, the dates, the names. So, I mean, it's impeccable.
You should have a history teacher who beats you so much that this is the secret of my. They say na that Raja ki jaan tote mein thi. So that's what it is. The secret is this. So yeah, those days I couldn't even remember who succeeded whom, and today I don't know how this comes from where.
Absolutely. So I think I could easily say this is the best conversation I've had, and you've been like a proper bhandar of gyan and so much information. It's been an honor to have
Thank you, Natasha.
I'll open the floor to audience questions now. One question per person, but feel free to ask, sir, what you feel like.
We should also have a lot of young people there.
Yes, absolutely. You could pick if you want
No, but I'm willing to sit here for the rest of the night.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
I'm Vishwas.
Hello, Vishwas.
Sir, today we readers have become the minority in the society. To put the true narrative,
Why do you say that?
because most of the people I'm surrounded with are non-readers, maybe that's for me. And to put the true narrative, to pass on the true narrative, what we get through books to our younger generation, basically pre-teen or teens, that's the right age to fill in the true narratives in their mind. As a member of RSS, like where I hold shakas, and where people come there, teens and preteens people come there to learn the true history. I think one of the major organizations where we hold these kind of shakas and try to put in the culture and history of our nation and our history. But I've faced difficulties to make them to read books. Like I personally hold some small competitions like on Swami Vivekananda Jayanti or Savarkar Jayanti to draw their portraits and all, so that I can gift them some good books. But if I give that, when I visit their homes, like I see that in showcase and like they will not open that and read. So what is your advice, a piece of advice for upcoming generation? How can we make them as good readers?
Thank you. I'm not so big to give advice to an entire generation, but I don't share so much pessimism. I think I'm just a very ashavadi for maybe misplaced reasons. I don't know. But I feel people are reading, but they are also consuming content in different ways. It may not, all knowledge need not come only from a book. Now, if you look at the number of people who watch these podcasts, it goes into millions, right? Including, with that Smita Prakash's ANI podcast that I did, or with Beer Biceps and all these people. So, I mean, that is... Poor guy. So, but then there are a lot of people who are hooked on to that anyway. And there was an interesting statistic I came across that 98% of internet users in India actually consume content in Indian languages. I think that is the place where we need to, all these English books, as great and whatever, 5 to 6% of India reads all of this. The soul of Bharat lives in our languages. Our languages are what needs to be nurtured, nourished, and spoken. And I'm unfortunately a Macaulay Putra, like several of you. I mean, I'll think and talk in English, which is a part of the colonial baggage that we've grown up with. But I think at least now to change. So one initiative I must share, those who follow me might know, we've started a new company called Nav AI. So can we use the emergent AI technology to actually seamlessly create more content which can be translatable from English to all the Bharatiya Bhashas? And we're not talking only of books and textual content, but also audio. Audio books. I think why on earth in 11 years the Prime Minister of India conducts this Man Ki Baat, where he can give a podcast or he can write a book or whatever, but he knows that a lot of people are consuming audio content. And this could be in, as I said, in Indian languages. Even those of us stuck in our wonderful Bangalore traffic, we have no other option but to listen to podcasts, Spotify and others to keep calm or do some meditation. So this is an emergent market. In fact, the audio books market itself is slated to touch upwards of $1 billion by 2030. I think this is where the opportunity lies, where people are consuming content. Young people are always eager to know more. It is how you package it, not be preachy, relate to them in the way they understand. And whichever, if they don't read a 900-page book, if they listen to the gist of it through a 1-hour podcast or a 5-minute Instagram reel, I don't care. But as long as you get the message, I think that is important. And slowly, it's a what do you say? It grows on you. It's a flavor that you gradually pick up, and at some point they might read. But even if they don't read, if the message is conveyed, I'm fine with that. I'm saying that in a bookstore.
For me personally, this is the medium where it organically sits inside our...
No, true. But you need teasers. You need people to also hook you into it. Today, I think the way mainstream media, the battles and wars and loud decibels, noise in our media, news channels, people are switching those off and listening to podcasts where it is, quiet talk of two people, mature adults sitting and discussing something sensible. So that is what I think one should use. And in that, of course, there'll be the pros and cons is all kinds of things will come. Riffraff will also come. But the same is of books. People can write any kind of book, which may be or may not be based on any facts. We keep saying most of our history books are written like that. So, so that being the case, it is a part of the turf. But I think I would be a little optimistic only in considering the penetration of mobile phones and the penetration of internet in digital economy in India. I don't see it as such a catastrophic thing that people are not consuming content. The form may have varied, and it is up to the content creators and distributors to adapt to this change. And technology is the best enabler for all of this.
This was one of the major discussion in the recent BITEC where we had.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. No, you can sit also. That's okay.
Yeah, so I have a very small question, small 2 questions. Yeah.
2.5.
But they're interconnected.
No, please go.
Okay, so you have many times paid tribute to someone like Sitaram Goyalji and a lot of other people. Don't you think that they are more pretty straightforward when they talk about the Islamic fanaticism or politics than you? Because I have heard you in India today's debate with that famous debate with Shashi Tharoorji, and you were saying that Indian Muslims should dehyphenate themselves from the past barbarians and they should create other icons. But that's not the case in the reality, right?
So what is the solution for that? You had in 1947 maybe there was an option of a population exchange which Dr. Ambedkar suggested.
Right.
Maybe that would have been a very optimal solution, I don't know.
Yeah.
But today you have to live with 250 million of a certain thing.
Right.
So the solution is, do you try to get them the maximum number of people onto another fold, or keep pushing them to the wall, saying we're not.
Yeah, but I'm saying question is not on us. So war or the riots or the violence is imposed on you.
Yeah.
So when you say that they don't celebrate Abdul Kalam, or they also don't celebrate someone like Akbar if we present him in the secular way.
Correct.
So they have already made their decision. So now all we have to do is...
No, if I'm one of the 50 influential minds, my work is to influence them not to think that way, right?
All right.
So,
but do you think that you are influencing the minority of India, or...
I don't know. We should see it's a tough task. I'm not saying it's easy. It is not easy. But what is another feasible solution? So while this comes, Sitaram ji has written Tipu Sultan, Hero or Villain,
Right.
which is a slimmer book, which I have, in terms of sources, in terms of archival work, I've done, with all due respect to him, I've increased the quantum of that work without laying bare all the facts. Yeah. Now you're going to present this to a modern Muslim, Christian, whoever, and say this is the fact. Now you make up your mind. What else is a better way to deal with the situation of co-living, co-inhabiting a country with someone? Unless you want a civil war every day.
Yeah.
So even the Kashi thing I was saying, so please sit down. So even many people on, social media and others, we want the 40,000 temples back. And Sitaramji, I don't know where that number also came. Sitaramji has in his Hindu temples where they were lost, I think 1,600 or 200 or something, 1,861 or something like that is the number. And he says this is the tip of the iceberg. There could be a lot more. Now, if there is a dispute, there can be only two ways of resolving that dispute. Either you go to court and claim that this is my property, or out of court, the two parties sit and say, Aapsi bhaichara, I will give you this. Now for both the things, now by some grand, Alauddin ka chirag. So tomorrow the other community comes and tells that I'm willing to give you all the temples that you think we were broken and this thing. As the Hindu community, do you have the list of which are those temples? Do you know where they are? But on bravado on social media to get more likes and retweets and all that, it is fine. You can say, I want all the 40,000. Where are those 40,000? Who's going to make a list of those? If you're going to court, doubly you have to have research. You have to have, you can't, on emotions, I like it. I mean, look at the Ram Janmabhoomi case, which went for so long. The VHP created a wonderful dossier of all facts, evidences, and archaeological reports and all of that. Similarly, the Kashi, in fact, I'm very happy to say that the book has now been presented by Vishnuji and Harishankarji as evidence in the court, because this is... That is the work one needs to do. So just talking because we have the josh, hosh bhi hona chahiye uske saath, is what I feel. That have you done your work well? Even if you want to do out of court settlement, if someone asks you, chalo bhai, I'll give you all the things, give me a patti as to what all I should return to you, we don't have. That's why the RSS came up with a simplistic solution that Kashi, Mathura, Ayodhya, no further. Now someone else will say, who are you to decide these three? Now I have some Kul Devata in some place in Kerala which has been destroyed. Why? And these three are only in Uttar Pradesh. What about the sentiments of someone in Odisha or Manipur or Karnataka or Maharashtra? Why does that not matter? So is there a list of non-negotiables that one needs to draw? Sitaramji's work, it has to be built in by people who idolize him and make it further. So on each of those, there should be evidences collected to say this is what we want. And that is the only way. That is one way. And constantly keep hammering the same thing that, you need to, how much, bhains ke aage been bajana ya what it is, I don't know. But at least keep telling that these are not your heroes. And these are the people who... Even your ancestors suffered at the height of the Mughal rule, even during Aurangzeb. You had someone like Athar Ali, whose work talks about, majority, 57% or something, of the administration were by Iranis and Turanis and Persians. The Mughals did not trust the Indian Muslims. They looked down upon them as converts. And we see that in Mohajirs in Pakistan even today. So, telling these things, whether it was going to... as I said, kiske aage been bajana, I don't know, but at least that is the only way to convert and influence someone's thought process, because to my mind, I see no other solution. You can't have another population exchange. You have to live with people, how best to live. Even while asserting your own rights, safeguarding your interests, at the same time cohabiting with someone.
Hello. Sorry. I'm taking this thing, caveat. You took a revenge on your teacher by becoming a history expert in a sweet revenge. So one question, what is your, means of all the kids, which is your favorite kid, if at all you have one? Second thing, will you write a book on Subhash Chandra Bose ever?
Subhash Chandra Bose, a lot of work has been done, sir. I think Anuj Dhar and Chandrachur Ghosh has written an entire biography. No, I think, yes. And yeah, the first one is very tough. A parent can never be asked to choose who's your favorite kid. Each one is important, each one is good. Yeah.
You don't have a favorite?
No.
The bigger one?
No, that should not be a criteria.
The tallest kid.
The weakest also should be your best. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, sir. Hi, sir. I'm a fan of your work, first of all. Second of all, you've talked about how there's a very Delhi-centric view, especially in history textbooks, which I've felt like in first person.
You felt that?
Yeah. I studied 7th and 8th, just 2 years back. So, at least I had the privilege of having at least 10 chapters for medieval, for modern period. But now, there's also a change of textbooks in CBSE. All geography, civics, and history have been condensed into one textbook, and in ICSE, it's been converted. History and civics are in one textbook. So there are barely 5 chapters that probably talk about history as a whole. So how would you condense such colorful history or periods of our history into 5 chapters which are barely 20 pages?
You're asking me how I will do it, or you're saying how you're critiquing the people who've done it? Second part, I think.
No.
You're criticizing those who are condensing it into.
The first part, to be honest.
How will I suggest? I don't think it can be done that way. But I think, I don't know what the current textbooks, please sit down. Yeah. I don't know how the current textbooks look like, but I think the textbook creator also, there has to be a grand Indian narrative. We need to have an idea as to what the larger arch of our history, what is the narrative that you want to set. It's finally all a war of narratives and counter narratives. And particularly the leftist school understands that, and capture of the mind, the Gramsci model, all of that talks only about that. How do you capture narratives, to make your point? So this is something that the person who's setting that needs to understand, that in this, so what are if you broadly say, as I said, what was the Indian mind doing in the 5,000, 6,000 years of their existence? What was the contribution to universal knowledge? Can you please not talk so loudly? It's just to production of knowledge in various branches, which I think now the IKS etc. is doing that. Now, along with that, what were some of the great things about our past which we can be very proud of? What were acts of bravery, acts of discovery, all these things about what our ancestors did. But equally important, don't just glamorize the past. Also learn what were the mistakes that our ancestors committed. Obviously, there were mistakes. That's why we were defeated and colonized. So we held back for a greatest amount of time. 500 years it took to establish an Islamic Sultanate in India, which is itself a great achievement, while the rest of the other continents fell very rapidly. So all these things, the mistakes of the past, the achievements of the past, and what was the grand Indian narrative. China did that. Once they had a grand Chinese narrative, it was very essential to reset the operating system to make this computer work well. I think that is what is lacking here. We still don't know. We just think inserting one thing here, one thing there is going to change it without a thought as to what is that larger arch. For a young person, what is the use of studying about A, B, C, D, or some dynasty, or Maharaja or Maharani or Sultan? What does it help you in? That larger picture, I think, is missing, which I hope someone who's, I'm unfortunately not part of that, but whoever is setting up the textbooks, they need to do that. But of course, you have the leftists are able to do that very brilliantly. In fact, when I was going on a tour of the store, just downstairs, you have a new book which one of my best friends has brought out, which is 5,000 years of Indian history. I don't know how many of you know about her. The wonderful person with whom I'm having a court case as well. But that 5,000 years she has managed to bring out in a very slim volume, which is right there at the entrance of this thing. The thing is, some of us need to do this. Now, to your question also, we keep saying, Acha, Romila Thapar did like this, Irfan Habib did like this one did, Audrey Truschke did this, all these things. But where is the counter narrative? To this day, Professor Romila Thapar's book is the go-to book when it comes to UPSC exams. Our civil servants are reading all of this. Has anyone from all this intellectual, this side, written an alternative ancient Indian history? Nobody has. An alternative to whatever they have done, based on facts, not rhetoric, not emotions, and we just get very emotional and we get into that profusion. Cold facts which can be proved on the yardstick of truth, I think that has not been done, which is what we are doing individually. And I'm sure some of you know, I've also established a foundation called the Foundation for Indian Historical and Cultural Research, FIHCR, which is precisely to do this, to foster new scholarship in Indian history, which is robust, which is fact-based, which is non-rhetorical, apolitical, but something that puts the facts and documents in public gaze in a manner that the people of India can understand.
Next question.
Hello sir, namaste. My name is Darshini. So you said your history teacher was the one that started. Now you are our history teacher. So thank you so much for that.
I will never beat anyone. That way I follow Gandhi.
My first book of yours is Brave Hearts of Bharat. Beautifully linked, so touching all the parts of India, linking the civilization also. So my question is, what's your take on writing book on, so you have touched Mysore, you're touching the unheard part of history. Mysore is done and these. What about the Chera, Cholas or Pandyas, any one of them? Why peculiarly? Because, that land also has so much of narratives going on. Yeah. And currently, what's happening of the Kiradi excavations also. So what's your take on that, and if any plans you have? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. No, right now, unfortunately, no, but I'm currently doing something on the Hindu history of Kashmir, which I think is... Thank you. Thank you. Which I think is so... Please sit down, ma'am. Which I think is so important. We keep saying Hindus did not have a sense of history. But if you go to the Rajatarangini, which we think only Kalhan wrote Rajatarangini, but you had successive waves of Rajatarangini being written, Rajatarangini book number 2, 3, 4, written by his successors, Shrivara, Jonaraja, many of these people, which we have not, heard of. So right from the Nilmat Puran and all that, which talks of the Kashyap Rishi, Kashyapamir, which becomes Kashmir, the Satisar Lake, which he drains out and makes this thing. From those, stories and legends and all that, to the, successive periods, he also calculates chronology history of the rulers, how Buddhism thrived in Kashmir. All of these details are there, and the Karkotas. In Bravehearts, of course, I speak of one of those rulers, which is Lalitaditya Muktapida of the Karkota dynasty, called the second Samudragupta, the empire that he built across, but we were never taught about him. So these people, the Utpala, the Lohara dynasty, all these people, and so the Rajatarangini series actually documents Kashmir Hindu history till the time of Akbar's conquest, which is 1580 something. So that till then, what is there, we've not really looked at it and chronologized it. And also that we think of when we talk of Kashmiri Pandits, of course this whole Kashmir files which brought that out in gory details to all of us, which happened in our living memories in 1990s. But there were 7 exoduses that this community faced. When all did this happen? Why did it happen? Who were the people who perpetrated it? What was the social and cultural history of these Pandits? And Kashmir was not just like that, a place like any other province. It was the knowledge capital of this country. All the works of astronomy, of Kashmir Shaivism, of Tantra, Vajrayana Buddhism, Abhinavagupta, all these great people, Varahamira. In fact, some say even Kalidasa was actually born in Kashmir, is what some people believe, because his descriptions in the Raghuvamsha and many others of the Himalayan mountains and its geography, unless you are born there or know the place, it's very tough to describe, is what some scholars believe. So, and no wonder that Shankaracharya establishes the Sarvagnya Pitha at Kashmir, the all-knowing Pitha, and that is why Sharada Devi is the presiding deity, the goddess of learning. The script is Sharada. So that was destroyed again with the same intention, that you break the spine of a nation and a civilization by breaking their knowledge centers. Takshashila, Nalanda, Vikram Shila, all of that, the way it was burnt. Nalanda destroyed, as you know, 6 months these manuscripts burn there. And of course, now when you go there outside Nalanda ruins, the place is Bakhtiyarpur, which is in honor of the great man who destroyed Nalanda University. So that is our, historical amnesia that we suffer from. So I think this is important, and alongside from our foundation, FIHCR itself, what we are doing is looking at, of course, a fellowship model. We have just launched the second batch of the Sir Jadunath Sarkar Fellowship for Indian History. The first batch is already done. So we scourge out for talent and applications. People go through a rigorous process. They're given a generous grant of about 15 lakhs per annum each person to do research. They're given mentorship, and I personally ensure that they all become books. So 5 of our fellows, out of that, 4 of them now have publishing offers which should start coming. New books will start coming on various topics. Thank you. And in fact, the second batch that we did, I'm totally amazed by the kind of topics and applications. More than 250 applications have come from various nooks and corners of India, who are rooted in the Indic traditions and in the Indic value of history, whom we would have otherwise never spotted. They've all applied. Now the interviews will happen, and we'll give scholarships to them to write these books. Alongside, we have a projects team which incubates these projects in educational institutions. So our first pilot is happening with the Nalanda University, which is on the history of the rise and fall of Buddhism in Bharat. Now, every time I talk about Ghazni and this and that, they'll say you also broke the Buddhist stupas and viharas. So is there any primary source evidence? Now, the saddest part is our history is written in languages that we don't know now. It is largely in Sanskrit, Pali, Prakrit, Persian, Arabic. So we are just relying on that 250 year of English knowledge and translation, which can be lost in translation, or it could be maliciously done. So can we go back to the primary sources, see what it talks about, Pushyamitra Shunga or Mirakula or Shashanka, whatever those controversies are, and actually write these books in a multidisciplinary fashion. So in this Nalanda project, along with me and another historian, we have an archaeologist also a Sanskrit Pandit, a Prakrit and Pali scholar, Tibetan monk who knows Tibetan and also Buddhist philosophy. So together can we come together, and that will be a 3-volume series on the history of Buddhism in Bharat. Similarly, this Kashmir history, then we're looking at a project on Ahilyabai Holkar's life and contribution from in association with Madhya Pradesh government. One with the Jaipur royal family on the contribution of the Kachwahas who get a very bad name that they gave away their daughters in marriage. There's no Jodha, as you know. There's no Jodha in the Jodha Akbar legend. So, but the poor royal family, they were the ones. In fact, even Kashi, one of the rulers there, Raja Jai Singh, who establishes Jaipur, he builds a temple which is called the Adi Vishweshwar temple even today. So their contribution. So like this micro histories from various parts of the country is something we are doing. And finally, someone asked, how does it reach the people who matter? Who are the young? The children and young adults, 60 plus and so on. No point converting anybody. So that's why we have one vertical which is called Yuva. And that is to make Indian history interesting, exciting, and inspiring for all of them. All this research that is churned, can it be put out to them in a understandable fashion? And in fact, this book that you see here, these 3 books, they have come out of Yuva. I've not written it, but it's Mala Kumar who's written The Missing Rocks of Hampi. There's Early Indians by Vijender Sharma. There's Pradeep Chakravarti who's written about royal warriors whom we forgot and all that. And through my NAV initiative, we are translating it. Simultaneously, these books are coming out in English, along with that in Hindi, Marathi, Kannada, Telugu, Tamil and Malayalam, all at the same time. And these books, I invite all of you, in fact, on the 12th of July, these books, 1+6, into all these 3 are being launched in Bangalore by Sudha Murthy ji and Yaduvir Wadiyar and Sadhguru Sai Madhusudan. Open invitation, of course, it will all come on social media, but all of you are more than welcome to attend that program at the Marriott in Hebal. Yeah. Sorry for a long answer to that very small question.
So would you be open to take some more audience questions, or should we open the floor for
more
signing?
than happy. As long as they are patient, I am always.
She has a train to catch. Okay. You could just sign her copy. She's been waiting for quite some time. While my team passes on the mic for, I think we'll take about 3 to 4 questions, and then we'll close it for today.
From Bangalore, but I have to go to the other part of town. Okay. My daughter is Sri Lekha. SRI? SHRI. Guru Raj. I'm a history teacher and a storyteller.
Oh, okay. Wow. You're the kind of people we want.
And the history book that you were talking about, status quo, I think.
Oh, God. That's so
I
sad.
teach in the ICSE curriculum.
I see.
No change at all.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Sorry for the hold up.
This is a real moment for me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much. Madam is a history teacher. So, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for your patience, sir, before I ask you this question. So, related to the question, the stuff that you said about the history of Kashmir. So, as we go back in time, the information starts becoming hazier, right? And let us say, we say our epics are our history, their itihas. But you also have very interesting incidents in the epics. Like, say for example, in Ramayana, Agni himself emerges from the yajna and gives payasam to Dasharath. How is this to be reconciled when we say that this is itihas? People will say this is magic.
Yeah. That's a good question. So I will talk about it in terms of, please take your seat, sir. So in the Nilmat Puran, as I was mentioning, so the story is the whole of Kashmir was a big lake called Sati Sar. So when Sati shed tears, the tears filled up and it became a huge lake. And Kashyap Rishi was passing by, and his children were the Nagas. And so in that lake, there was a monster called Jalodbhav or something. And so they all go to him and say, please, do something. And then he invokes Vishnu and Shiva and all these people. and then they take some, Balram takes his, plow and breaks through the mountain, and that becomes Varahamula, which is Baramulla, and through that all the water is drained out and it becomes what it is what the story says. But later the geological evidences which archaeologists and geologists, even during the British time, from the 1860s and so on, have done. There are something called karevas which are there in the geostructure of that place, which have gone to prove that this place was actually a lake, and it is through the draining of a lake that this has actually happened. Now, so as I said, our ancestors never gave us the story. You have to struggle to get that information. It will be told in a puzzle. It will be told in a very, very nice way. Directly they will not say this happened. They want to tease the reader. They want to intellectually tease you. In fact, a couple of weeks back, literally 7 hours it took me to just try to understand the chronological details that Kalhan was giving in Rajatarangini. So it's all in a puzzle. So I am sitting today in Shaka Samvat 1070. Between me and Gonanda III, 2330 years have passed. Then he'll go on to some other story. Then again he'll suddenly come and say, Gonanda first to Gonanda III, there were 152 kings who ruled for 1266 years. So these are all mathematical puzzles which you have to then put together. And 653 years after the advent of Kali Yuga, that is when the Kauravas and Pandavas lived, he brings up one small verse somewhere. So if you actually go through that whole thing and bring out these numbers, then you deduce it. But in the middle of that, there'll be all kinds of fanciful stories like this. Now, even there, after Kashyapa does this, there is a story that the Nagas come and tell him, we would like to live here, but there are some people called the Pishachas who also want to come and live there for 6 months of the year. Now in the Rajatarangini, they are described as small and ugly with very wide eyes and all kinds of things. Now actually, if you go to the Neolithic, excavations, the excavations of that period, I'm talking of 7000 BC and so on, so that matches what is found in Kashmir is the same which is in Central Asia, in the Tarim ranges in Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, which means some people were traveling from there and coming here. And evidence shows that they were staying here for limited periods of time and returning during the summer back to their places. So, and they had these mongoloid features which kind of match with the description that is given of these so-called Pishachas in this text. Then there is one more thing, that there is the Manavas who come and tell him that we also want to stay here. Can you give us a place? Now these Manavas, the deduction then becomes that these were probably, when the Saraswati river dried off, which is Ghaggar, this thing. So from there, Saraswat Brahmins and others moved upwards to Kashmir to look for better pastures, and they asked the local king, who was a Naga, saying, can we also live there? And when they used to come before, the Pishachas used to drive them away because they were also migrants. Another migrant is coming and competing with us, so we'll drive them away. Now this fellow, the Naga king, says, you are allowed to live here. Usme there is one long story. Vishnu has given this kind of rule. If you comply by that rule, then you can live here and this and that. But actually what they say is, if you commingle, if you adapt to this culture, then you're allowed to stay here. So they would have come from Punjab and Haryana, gone to Kashmir in the upper reaches. Now they have been asked, if you co-adapt to this culture, we'll allow you to stay. And to this day, I believe Kashmiri Pandits, in their rituals and family thing, the Naga symbolism, the worship of serpent deity is something that is prevalent. So obviously there was people who migrated elsewhere, the Saraswat Brahmins, who adopt to the local tribal culture of Kashmir to become that. And the Karkota dynasty, Karkota, it's also is a symbolism of a snake, Karkota snake, which is in the Mahabharata. So if you join the dot, that's what I said, there is not that all this is bakwas and nonsense and fanciful stories. It is left to the seeker to try and put the dots together, and they intellectually tease you at every point. And this is in everything, even the Sulba Sutras. It will not directly say a square equal to b square plus c square and hypotenuse. There'll be some poetry there. There'll be some lot of stories from that you need to take out. Whether it is sciences, why even spirituality and our scriptures. For those who are Devi worshippers, you have the Panchadashi, which is one of the pinnacles of this thing. That is a very Gupta mantra. But if you actually look at the Lalita Trishati, so there are verses in stanzas, all of it start with the same alphabet, 10 verses, then another alphabet, If you take the first alphabet of all of that and try it, it's available on Trishati, Lalita Trishati, 300 verses. The first alphabet of each group, if you put it together, that is the Panchadashi mantra, which is not directly told to you, but you have to see patterns. You have to look at, this thing. And when you correlate it with modern evidences, geology or anthropological and so on, then some element of truth can emerge. I think really no one has done too much work on decoding our Puranic literature those stories are nice, but to strip those stories off and see in each Purana what are the things which actually make sense. And today, I don't know, in the world of AI and all that, if you can actually scan all the 18 Mahapuranas and actually, see what are the patterns that emerge, what is the chronologies that are being suggested, we might get to something else. We keep saying this Indic lens to Indian history, Hindu history, but none of us know it. And so that's why what I said earlier too, rhetoric will not help. I think hard dirtying your hands and getting into the field is what might help.
Thank you.
Hello, sir. Read many of your books, but hearing from you directly was a great.
Thank you,
also very happy to learn that. What do you think about podcaster? Because I am also a small podcaster.
Oh, wow. Oh, nice.
I have a small channel, Wow Namrata. So
very nice.
So my question is, recently I was reading my son book on 1857, Revolt of 1857. So I was explaining him about Rani Lakshmi Bai and everything. He said, no, there's only a paragraph written about her, nothing much. Not about Mangal Pandey also, only 2 lines were there about Mangal Pandey. What I need to ask you, that being a historian, so what do you think the role and responsibilities are there? Being a public figure, you are an influencer. So what is your role and responsibilities that the next generation, they are forgetting the history, and what the history they are being taught are distorted? And one more question. We are seeing that in West Bengal, what is going on? We have a huge history of West Bengal. So soon it will disappear and we will be knowing all this, what is happening. So will you be coming up with West Bengal history as well?
Thank you, ma'am. Please sit down. There is enough and more. There's so much to do. Cheras and Pandya, someone said, West Bengal, Manipur, Kamrup. In fact, one of our fellows is doing a history of the pre-Ahom history of Kamrup, right from the Puranic times till Raja Prithu. So Prithu Rai was a Raja who actually defeats Bakhtiyar Khilji. Bakhtiyar Khilji has invaded Bengal and burnt Nalanda, and then he wants to go and attack Kamrupa. And Prithu is the one who manages to, the scorch earth policy and so on, and beats him black and blue. And he's literally, they're killing their own horses and eating them to stay alive, and they run away for, saving their life. And there's one inscription also there near Guwahati which talks about Raja Prithu. So up to that, this man, Nabarun Barua, who's a fellow, he's writing this book. So there are micro histories, macro histories of every part of India. Lots can be done. I think now at least the awareness is starting, and roles of a historian, I think, I hope and wish that I'm fulfilling it to the best of my ability. One is through my own writing, through all of this, as I was telling him, you should look at various other media and platforms. And he spoke about Sitaramji, Dharampalji, all these people. I mean, we have all ascended on their shoulders to come to where this is. They battled a very difficult regime. They battled a social climate, political climate, which was detrimental, and despite that, they did what they did. And we at least have it easy, me and my cohort of people who are doing all of this. At least there is social awareness. There is social media, for God's sake, to at least help us amplify our voice. We are not dependent on mainstream media to amplify anything that we want to convey. So there is just so much that can be done, and in little ways a lot of this is being done individually in pockets. I think institutionalization is a very important factor. In India, we all look at, especially on the non-left side, I think people look at a lot of individual glories and individual thing. I think building a larger institution that has a legacy that goes beyond you and your life, I think that is important, which a lot of people need to do. That very, very small way are these two things. I mean, FIHCR and also the translation now thing, which probably will make this accessible to more people, but many more need to do this. But your larger question, of course, the government is the best scalable mechanism, where it's taken so long to change books. And in that, generations have passed. Young people like this little girl who was there, I mean, they don't study history, I think, beyond class 10 or 12, they're waiting to get rid of it. Now, every year in 11 years or 10 years, if you have a crore or so children passing out, all of them have gone out with the same distorted mindset, and that's an opportunity loss not only for the nation but our civilization. But when will that change? I think class 6 and 7 has to some extent changed, I'm not sure, but I think it's too slow for comfort, and that is where some amount of Shatrubodha is also important, because when the Congress government came here in Karnataka, within I think 3 weeks they changed all the. So for that, you don't have to have NEP, then NCF, and then one committee. In governments, the best way to derail something is to form committees. So one committee will give one report, that will take a few years, then some other committee. So that is the game everyone is playing. Why, I have no clue, because I'm not part of it. But I wish, common citizens like all of us raise our voice, lobby for a honest history of the country. I think the roles and responsibilities even of civil society like all of us is important to bring that awareness.
We'll take one last question for the day. Three? Okay. We'll take 3 questions. One here and 2 more. Yeah. One here.
2 from the left, 2 from the right.
Okay. 2 from the left and 2 from the right.
My right, their left.
Namaste, sir. Sarvadarshi here. So many of the issues we saw currently, we need to rewrite the history, we have to analyze the pattern, we have to get rid of the issues with the language. So the best bet I can see is AI, artificial intelligence, and which you have started as well. So my question is on the same. So if we were to train AI agent, so what kind of AI historian we are expecting? Is it going to be you, Sai, Meenakshi Jain kind? Or you have admitted your best friend having a court battle, and their kind of historians we are coming up with. Because AI is trained on the data, and data is mainly with the left-leaning history we are facing, which is not in our favor. What are your thoughts on it?
I think thank you. That's a great. Lost its battery. I've been running on an Evercell, but your mic is not. It's come. Yeah. I think that's a great question. Someone like a pioneer again, Rajiv Malhotra ji, has been talking about the AI danger for a very long time. And most of the things that he says, we wake up very late, and by then a lot of water has passed. Now, we already lost this thing with Wikipedia. And Wikipedia is something on a daily basis. It will be astonished the kind of wars that happen on Wikipedia. Sanjeev Sanyal, mine, and Anand Ranganathan, I think his page only got deleted, but Sanjeev in 30 seconds. But Sanjeev and me we're seeing it. There's a bunch of people there. There's this some Trenga Bellum. That is the code word of that person. If you see the Wikipedia edits, this same person goes and makes these edits. And as you know how you have a wiki editor who will have to go and do it, and then contestation happens. Nobody from the other side bothers to keep a track of this. You have to be vigilant. The prize of democracy, as they say, is eternal vigilance. They are doing it all the time. And when we actually traced who this Trenga Bellum is, what are the kind of pages they have made, you'll be astonished that this is the person who has made Ms. Trushki's page. And they constantly vandalize the Indian government related Wikipedia pages on Indian Army, Kashmir, all of this. So it's one cohort of people who are paid to sit and do all of this. And what are the sources for that? So Swaraja, Op India, these things will not be taken as sources in Wikipedia. Wire and Scroll will be. So suddenly you will see that to demonize a person, there will be some 10 articles simultaneously churned out by various people whom you never knew existed. Some fellow in some godforsaken university in some place in New Zealand, they'll come and write, oh, this guy is not a historian, he is an economist, who is he to... And these are building blocks to create that corpus of information, and then the Wikipedia article will say, quoting that fellow here. I'm not saying anything, quoting that. So I think that's a great question, that it is too late already. So to create this online corpus on various fronts, articles, and the data also, because thankfully with AI it is artificial. It doesn't have intelligence of its own. It will take up the data sets that you give it. So I think now we through this platform that we're building, we're also feeding it with a large corpus of alternative versions of all of this, and it's anybody's guess who wins this battle, because that is a war of technology. And as I said, told someone else, it's a war of narratives, and today technology is the biggest enabler in this seesaw battle between. So to be eternally vigilant and cautious as to who is doing what, someone needs to do that, because the other side, anti-India forces within and outside the country are constantly doing this. And we are in a sense of comatose and hyper confidence, which we think kuch kya hoga isse, nothing is going to happen. Yeah.
One more from...
Hi sir. Hi sir, my name is Bharat. Actually, I'm an author. I used to write fiction. So I think somewhere in last year, some March, I started following your books and your talks, Sahideep. I decided I wanted to write something, so another book which has a layer of history in it. Since then, when I went and I wanted to write clear history, so either it was distorted or it was in puzzles which you need to decode, as you mentioned. So my question was that, when you started writing, during that, when you write at Tipu or on all these things, did you also went through those mind blogs and you get overwhelmed and you had your own diciness, whether what to write or whether it's right or something? And for someone like me, any suggestions, how can I come out of that mindset? How to kind of rewind and get back on track? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Levels of diffidence and this thing come all the time. In fact, even Savarkar, while thinking of those volumes, it is literally, just one trip to London to do the research on the 5 years that he spent there. Some 40,000 pages of documents I'd managed to collect there. Then, as she mentioned, 11,000 of those murder trials. Then there's so many. The problem of plenty also sometimes comes. Sometimes a historian doesn't have sources. Sometimes they have a plethora which is so difficult to manage. So in that time too, I was very, very diffident. I said, understanding Savarkar or writing about him is literally like sitting under the Niagara Falls. You have the torrents that he showers on you, very complex characters. Tipu Sultan is also very complex. I remember at that time my mother had told me, as I was telling her, I just don't know how to deal with this. And he lived also so long, 83, 84 years. So how much to write, you know. Sorry, I mean, I wish he lived longer, but for this thing, I'm like, how do Gagar mein Sagar bharna type of a thing. So she told me something very interesting. She never was into mountain climbing, as far as I know, but I don't know how she brought this up. She said, when you're climbing a mountain, Mount Everest, then don't look behind to see how much distance you have traversed. Don't keep looking up to see how much is left. Just be in the moment, take one step at a time, and before you realize you've reached the summit. So sometimes the best way to overcome the writing block is to start writing. We think we will first read all the things about this, we'll make a mental map, we'll make notes, and then one fine day on a Shubha Muhurat we'll start writing. It will not happen like that. The best way is to just begin. So as they say, you know, to learn swimming, you have to get into the water. You will flap, you will do this, that, but somehow you will start learning. To cook, reading cookery book is not going to help. You have to burn your finger, you have to burn the sabzi, whatever, but that is the only way. So once, as much as a mind-boggling a particular topic sounds, the best way is to start, and there will never be one draft. There are multiple drafts, more discoveries. Every work of history, as a famous historian had said, is an interim report. So it's always a work in progress. Some new discovery comes, some new archive you come across, some other document. That is the intellectual, you know, vigor of the subject and discipline, which is constantly discovering new things. So that is the way I go about it, and I think that's the best way when blocks happen too. I don't know if that helps. It's my mantra at least.
This side. Could you pass the mic this side? We take one there and we take one. Shri, you could go at the back and then come back.
Hello, I am Soham. I don't know if you remember me from Twitter. I go by Feluda.
Oh my God, okay.
Yeah.
So when I spoke about Trenga Bellum, so he was my savior who helped me, combat Trenga Bellum. Thank you.
So that was a time when
Thank you, Soham.
That was a time when the second Savarkar book came, and there were a lot of articles and all that.
Yeah.
So my question is, I have some friends who are inspired by you and are now in the process of even in the process of writing books on maybe Savarkar and other aspects. So the problem that they face, the practical problem that they face is the access to the archives. So when they go to the National Archives, firstly you need to have a scholarship to get into that, and otherwise you have to pay a sort of hefty fees to get into it. On the other hand, the people there, the librarians there, the people there are very antagonistic. So I mean, as you said, that we need an institutional change. But how can I, as a person who doesn't have a stake in and contribute into the institutions, how can I change this? And because the work they are doing is very insane. Like they have went through 20,000 pages of the works of the INA papers, and they have found some very good evidence relating to Savarkar. There is as far as I know, there is only one letter written by a soldier to Sardar Patel relating that, but they have found some much more stronger evidence for that. But the thing is, just to do that, they had to, apart from balancing their jobs and all, they had to do a lot of struggle to just get to the archives. So how can we get forward with this? That's my question.
Great question, but to the wrong person. I wish I was handling the culture ministry, but this comes under the Ministry of Culture, and I don't know if there are people in the Sangh, in maybe the party and so on to kind of, or if they have any kind of institutional affiliation, or if nothing, if they write to FIHCR, mentioning that if at all we can try as an institution and say they are one of our researchers, because I think these archives, and this is only in India, where when you go to the British Library in London, thank God at least for that they took away all our documents and everything is preserved and kept. So the India Office library there, if you stay there for 1 or 2 years, I think some 10-15 books can get written because everything is documented. And you can take your camera or phone and then take photos of it. And yeah. Agree. And they have some weird rule that only 15% or 10. Why do I want only 15%? I want the whole goddamn thing. So, and of course, even the PMML, Pradhan Mantri Museum and Library, I think they have microfilms. So the Savarkar private papers, and there are almost 40 or 50 microfilms. So his entire life, 1920 outside jail, so 1924 to 1966. Is there in microfilms. So because he was probably the singular person who was under surveillance both before independence and after independence. So every letter that went in and out of his house, a copy was maintained by the Union government, British and then Nehru. So all these are on microfilms called the Savarkar private papers. So when I managed only a few, I could not. It was a huge thing. But there also, when you go and see the accession register, the diary where who was the last person before me who accessed this. So it was 1980, 81, something like. Nobody would have seen it. And people have written research, thesis, PhD, all eminent historians, done eminent work. So that is sadly the thing. I think they are precursors of ChatGPT. So, where they bring out content without a lot of information, which is sad. But I really wish, other than this help, which I can perhaps through the FIHCR, if it helps, we can issue some bona fide this one. But or if they have the universities from where they come from, if they.
If that thing is sorted, it's the antagonism of the institution, but you can't do that anything. But yeah, that's a something.
No, that's an antagonism I face. I also have a lot of trouble to get access to so many archives, which is sadly how we operate as a country. Well, we will allow termites to eat those, but we will not give it to a researcher. As if some great state secrets are all held inside. Yes. 2, we can take this too.
Good evening, sir. I'm a law student from a very infamous university in Hosur Road. So, sir, it's a bit tricky question, sir. Given that Islam is governed by Sharia law and Christianity is governed by the authority of Pope, priest, cardinals, and religious text without any state interference. So, while Hindu temples are subject to state controls and taxations, unlike other institutions, so do you believe that Hinduism should be codified and brought under its own religious authority? Can Article 25 to 27, though it's states that the freedom of managing the religious institution without the interference of the state and the reduction of taxations, so of the Indian Constitution be invoked to seek equal protections and autonomy of Hindu religious institutions?
You, I think, confused me for both Anand Ranganathan and Sai Deepak. By no stretch of imagination am I a patch on both those wonderful gentlemen, because neither the law nor 30 seconds Hindus and Hindu Rashtra, I think, answers your question. I mean, it's a no-brainer that of course we have, but codifying, I don't know. If do you in the process want to? They say when you hate something, in the process you become the thing that you hate.
When there is a concept of Hindu Marriage Act, the Codified Hindus Act. So when there is a presence of Sharia Act in this, and then the state says that we cannot interfere in that, but we can interfere in the matters of Hindu.
See, that's what there are. From what I understand, as I said, I'm not the lawyer or the legal expert here, but in Hinduism, there are multiple streams and thoughts. Now here, in maybe the Vaishnav Sampradaya, the enormous amount of this thing to no use of even onion and garlic in the way you offer the prasad to the deity is followed. But in Assam, in Kamakhya, in all these places, Pashu Bali is a part of that. Now, what are you going to codify there in terms of rules? Is that a one size fits all thing that works for a faith like ours? When it comes to control and other things, it's a no-brainer that the state should get out of it and hand it to people. Nobody asks them that, till you have social reforms, we will not give you the control of mosques or gurudwaras or this one. Then why here, unless you get rid of the jati, vyavastha, varna vyavastha, we will not. That is a foolish thing. Nobody would agree. And I think Anand has written and spoken so much in detail about these things. But these things of codification of practices are a very dicey thing, according to me. There are so many Shakta Paramparas are different from... In the Shakta Parampara, there are the Kaula Marga in the this thing, which has the Panchamakaras of Tantra, including Madira, Mamsa, Maithuna, all these things. And you have a Sri Vidya practice, which is in Dakshinachar, which is not like that. And in the Sri Vidya, there are so many further layers. You have the Tamil Nadu, the Siddha tradition of Tirumular and others, which is separate from what the other, Meru worship. That is very, very ritualistic. This is very, going into the chakras inside you. And so there are numerous such things. So how do you, when you say codify, if it is just a pedantic thing like administration, who will be in the board and this and that, of course. But when you codify, can you codify the religion? I don't think so. And it has never been. We've had Shaddarshanas, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Mimamsa, all of these. They have always been contesting each other. We've had the Jaina, Bauddha, Ajivika, the Charvaka people who also, the Nastika Panthas. And within them, there has been so much of discussions, debates. So to strip that away and have a unifying thing, that's what, as I said, the thing you hate, you become a version of that. I don't want to Abrahamize, I think, Hinduism. This plurality is our strength, I feel. And the way we have multiple so-called, multiple deities is that it's a personal journey. I worship the god or the goddess. We're the only one which has a goddess, the pagan religion, which is still having a divine feminine worship still there. How I want to invoke that God is left to me as an individual. How to take that away and codify it into something unilateral, where someone sitting, who is going to be the head of this thing? Will it... Shankaracharyas are all fighting among each other. Now, then you bring that, then you've seen some Shankaracharyas going in front of press and talking all kinds of things. Then you have the Vaishnav, Uttaradi Mutt, Udupi Mutt, this and that and so on. So who is the one single pope who will sit and tell, this is Hinduism, that is not Hinduism? Vallabhacharya Sampradaya will say Pashu Bali is not done. But the whole Kamakhya and Tarapit will go up in arms saying, unless we do that, this shrine cannot function. So what do we do there? So I think these are issues which I can say as a layman from the outside, that the law thing I'm not getting into, but the philosophical and the theological things, of course, that there is no two ways. The last one.
One question right here. Last question of the day.
Namaste. My name is Sai Tejaswani.
Yeah.
I'm a dancer, teacher, and sometimes an artist.
Wow. Why sometimes an artist? All the time an artist if you're a dancer.
Yes. So my question to you is, according to you, what do you think should be every Bharatiya's vision for Bharat?
Bapre, heavy question. Last ball was a googly. Bharatiya's vision for Bharat. I think at a mundane level, I feel we have lost a national character, which to resurrect that is so important. And this loss of national character, I'm not talking high, esoteric things. Simple things like keeping our cities and towns and villages clean. When you go to countries outside India and you come here and see, of what use is all this esoteric stuff if we cannot even do the basic things of maintaining our towns and cities as livable. Our ancestors has shown us that right from the Harappan times, town planning, urban, design, all of that has been done. But we don't follow that as individuals. Of course, we have all the reason to blame our BBMPs and BMCs and all these municipal corporations. We saw this thing of how potholes were being filled recently. So I think that national movement, so to say, of resurgence, I think it is slowly coming, the slow awareness. And when will you start taking that ownership, when the love to keep your city clean or your places around you clean? Only when you have a sense of ownership. Your house you will not litter, hopefully, go around and throw things around because you feel it is my house, I'm living here. But our cities and even educated people just throw anything outside, do all of this. So I think the first part begins there, where you start owning and loving your country well enough to protect this. We do not talk about important issues related to environment, to climate. We have the dubious distinction of having the most polluted cities of the world. We do not accept that. We don't take corrective actions. We don't force our governments to act in that. These issues do not become electoral issues. Something totally extraneous and silly and stupid is what occupies so much of space. Mind space, air pollution, water pollution. By IISc had said, I think by 2030 or 35, Bangalore will become unlivable because the groundwater table is going rapidly down. None of us take these into cognizance, and all of that happens because of this, I feel, a loss of national character. And to revive that in ourselves and in everyone else, and that revival can happen through multiple streams, through our history, through our spirituality, through the arts, all of it, through literature, to give us that impetus. And when we look back at our ancestors and what has been done, that flame to keep that going, I think that, to my mind, is the biggest, if we really need to leapfrog into the threshold of greatness, which we are going to go. I mean, third econ, largest, 5 trillion, 10 trillion, all that will happen. We'll have more BrahMos, missiles, we'll have many things. All that will happen. But this important thing, just a visit to even Sri Lanka, and you come back and you see the streets there, this thing being so clean, and the highways and main metro cities of this country being so dirty. It says a lot about us as a people and as a culture. I think unless we all take that into our hands, don't know what the future is. Thank you.
Thank you.
This went on like an Akhand Ramayana.
No. So I think I would say this on behalf of all of us. This could really go on, and we would really love to hear you. I think I completed about 4 or 5 questions. I had about 20, and I'm sure so many people in the audience wanted to ask you so much more. We should make this a monthly affair. Petition to make this a monthly affair. But thank you, Dr. Sampath. It's been an honor to have you at Sapna. All of us are so grateful.
Thank you. Thank you, Natasha. Thank you. Thanks to Sapna, thanks to the store, everyone here, and to all of you for giving me a patient hearing on a Sunday evening. To think about history and historical topics is not easy. Thank you for coming, and thanks you, Natasha. Thank you.
I think it's truly a Gyan Bhandar. I'd request Mr. Anthony to come forward. We'd really like to thank you, sir.